Greetings. We'd like to discuss with you this plan form we're showing here, the oval overlay that we're using within Google Earth that we place on Google Earth to capture the metrics of a Carolina bay. This particular Carolina bay is located alongside Lake Marion in South Carolina. You can see in the image here, which is a HSV, hue saturation value, highlighted, hinted digital elevation map, shows the area around this bay. Alongside here to the west, you can see the passage of Interstate 95 and US 15 and 301 as they come together and cross Lake Marion and the Santee River in South Carolina. Also in the image is visible another interesting aspect, which is these parabolic sand dunes, which are tracing from west to east, essentially up off the former basin of the Santee River, now Lake Marion. These sand dunes do not seem to be having much of an effect on this Carolina Bay, which raises the question of, was the bay created after the sand dunes, or does the creation process of sand dune not have much effect on the structure of the Carolina Bay? We actually believe it's the latter. Now, this overlay is created and allows us to capture metrics of the bay using the Google Earth KML features. We've named this, it's automatically named 134321, which is the octant, a quarter by quarter degree segment of the Earth. And 0766 is the one of possible 10,000 locations within that octant that we can have a bay. So we auto-generate this name to have a handle for it. The bearing described by the arrow here is 148.4 degrees from true north, which we consider the inferred orientation of the bay. The plan form, this particular oval, is Bay South prototype. You can see it up here. We're differentiating this from the bay prototype that we use in the Central Carolinas, which is a bit more symmetrical. As we move south, we see the plan form actually being skewed a bit, scrunched as it were, into this shape. The eccentricity we've measured here is 0.676, a rough number since it's kind of based on a true oval, and these are not true ovals. And the surface area is 122 hectares, again a rough approximation since this isn't a true oval. As we back out, you can see that we've actually created a few of these bays in the area. We've already identified them. And as we back out to the general area, you can see more of Lake Marion. As I go through these individually, you can see we have one bay here a little further north that's just under 10 hectares. Another bay is a little bit bigger in this channel here is 154 hectares. To the south of the bay we just looked at, there's one of 22 hectares, and further south is one at about 35 hectares. Now, you will notice that each one of these has exactly the same inferred orientation. The bearing is roughly 148. This one here actually is 141, but basically they're all roughly the same orientation. We see a little shift here. Now, as we look at these, you can see that each one of these has backing up support the satellite imagery from Google Earth provided with historical imagery falls out as we move in under 3 kilometers so that we can actually see how this bay looks in the real Earth photographs. And again, we do see this fitting quite nicely, whether it be the LiDAR or the satellite imagery. Is a pretty almost exact fit using this bay plan form. Now as we move to another one of them, we'll see the same situation. This is the 9449 one. looks pretty much the same. And as we back out, again, the LiDAR imagery will come in and we'll see the fit. Now you'll notice here we have to be very careful, and we're relying heavily on LiDAR for these planforms to show the true shape of each of these bays, because as you see as we zoom in here, quite often the water area, the wet area, the marshy area of the bay doesn't quite fill the rim, whether there's some sand deposited from the nearby dunes or for whatever reason, but we cannot rely on the water surface or the bay surface to describe the actual Carolina Bay. We do rely on the very finely defined LiDAR. We'll go back up to that very small one. This actually is sitting partially flooded by the Lake Marion when it was built, but you can still pretty easily see how this was formerly a Carolina Bay and is now basically an inlet because of Lake Marion. The unit next to it is the one that was a slightly different rotation. I'm going to go and play with this a little bit here. This is how we deal with the rotation. We can actually adjust each of these to get a better fit. I was comfortable moving this off a little bit from the 148, and that's fine. We're comfortable with that. So we're going to leave it where it was. One of the aspects that we would like to highlight here is that these bays sitting here on these sand dunes have exactly the same alignment and the same planform as all the other bays in the area. And as we back out, you'll see that there are numerous bays to the south and the west and to the north and the east. So what we're going to do here is take the opportunity to simply take one of our bays. We'll take the one we've been working with, and we're going to do a copy of it and a paste of it, and we're going to get info on it, or see properties, which allows us to drag it around. And here we're going to zoom in and fit it to a bay to the north and east to see how well this fits. The rotation has changed a little bit because we have moved away, but as we move in on it, we see here we can recover a fairly good rendition of the bay using our planform. And as we zoom in closer, we'll come up with what it looks like on the ground. And you can see here the rim to the south and the rims to the north, and the slightly different land use and damper, darker areas pretty much conform to what's on the ground also, and as well as you can see the rim. Now we've kind of, there's just two different ways of looking at capturing these bays. One is try to capture the rim, and the other is to capture the floor. The jury is still out on which one of those is more appropriate. We're kind of doing a little bit of both and trying to average that out between the bays. Now again, we have other bays in the area. I'm going to once again do an OK on this and a copy paste, get info, and then we're going to move up and take a look at this larger bay here and see how it fits into the bay planform. Yes, and we're stretching it a bit, and we're going to rotate it a bit, and once again we're able to comfortably capture the planform of this bay using our Bay South prototype. And again, that, another copy paste, that same prototype and that same alignment will typically work quite well on the very small bays in the area. I'll touch this up a little bit here. And yes, again, another quite comfortable fit for that bay. And in the satellite imagery, there's not a whole lot on the ground here to suggest the bay is there. Although if I pull it away and pull it back, you can see if you were just doing this without the LiDAR, you may well drop this bay right about that location. And then as we drop back out, you'll see you actually did capture it well, even with the satellite data, although LiDAR is very helpful and helps create a satisfying level of confidence. So I'm going to OK that one, do another copy paste, and let's go over and grab another big bay here. And I'll point out again, we're using exactly the same plan form we started with down on the sand dunes along the Santee River, and now we're up here further inland. And yes, once again, a perfect fit. And as we'll back out and we'll say, okay, and this process should work in the southern areas also, I'm going to do a copy paste, and I'm going to grab that image, and we'll look down here and see how this looks south and west of Lake Marion. And we're going to come in here, and again we're squishing and spreading and rotating this plan form, but not really changing its geometry, just its length and width. And once again we get a fairly good fit, and as we move in on the satellite imagery, again we can see there is a land use differentiation here. From the land use, I might probably tweak this upper corner here a little bit to pick up this ridge, which may not be part of the rim, but that's perhaps a slightly better fit. And again, we can use this process over again, another copy paste. I grab this bay here closer to Lake Marion, and once again a very nice comfortable fit into that. Drop into that hole here, and as we look at it on the ground, there's actually again a differentiation we talked about earlier, where the clearly present bay rim does not control the land use inside. Here, if you actually were to create the bay just from the satellite view, you might do something like this, and then as you back out, you can see you missed the actual rim of the bay, and that actually might change the orientation, which we have to be careful about because we're doing this survey primarily to gain information about these orientations and how they change. So there you have it. We've identified a number of bays near the Lake Marion area. They are all of the South Bay planform shape. They all fit quite nicely into that, and their alignments are all roughly 148 degrees. Now I'll go process those through later on to 141 degrees on that one, 148 degrees on this one. We'll process all these bays that we've just taken, along with perhaps another 1,000 in the area, and come up with an average bearing for these bays. Thank you.